Hi, welcome to episode 31 of the Austin Downbeat. I'm Kat, your host. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm excited to bring you this guest today. First, let's get through the rundown. This covers November 1st through the 7th, and here we go. Foles is at Stubbs, Shooks, the band, is at Hotel Vegas, and Los Lobos. Hi, Steve Berlin is at Luck Ranch. On Wednesday, November 2nd, Natalie Price is at Party on PNC Plaza, and that's outside of ACL Live. And then you have Carrie Rodriguez at 310 ACL. On Thursday, November 3rd, Sasami is at Lucktoberfest. Mount Joy is at Stubbs. Echo Smith is at Parish. Erin Ivy is at the O4 Center, and Barbara Nesbitt and Eric Bettencourt, my guest today, is at the Continental Club Gallery upstairs. Friday, November 4th, come catch me checking out the Selfless Lovers at Cactus Cafe, Jeff Plankenhorn at Saxon Pub, Lucius at Scoot Inn, and Daniel Fears, who's been on the show, at Captain Quackenbush's Coffee House. Saturday, November 5th, I told you it's a good week for music. Ray Prim, love him. Hey, Ray, is at Peggy's on the Ledge. I met Peggy the other night, so shout out to Peggy too. Joe James is at Carmen Thread, and King Princess and M. Behold is at Emo's. Madame Radar is also at Saxon Pub that same night. And last but not least, Monday night, we love Monday Night Supper Club at El Mercado South, as well as Bob Schneider doing his Lonely Land at Saxon Pub. That does it for the rundown. Bands in Town is a great tool to use to see who's playing where. Also, just following your folks that you love on social media and keeping tabs on them that way. Okay, I have a longer interview for you today. I honestly could have talked to my guest today for double the time. Wonderful conversation with Eric Bettencourt. So, not from Austin, but an Austin transplant from Maine. And there's so many things that I could just rattle off that I love about this guy. But I think the thing that kind of has stuck with me since our conversation is just how he's just a really honest guy. And I felt like we were kind of on a walk, that was that kind of conversation that you might have on a walk with someone. We have a shared love for Bill Burr, which I love. He took some time off of music and now he's back in the swing of things and going out and playing out. We talk about anxiety and diet and meditation. We're going to do some hot yoga. Not in the show, but outside the show. Anyway, I could go on, and we do in this interview. So please enjoy it. Thanks so much. I'm so happy to welcome you to the show, Eric Bettencourt. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, I sometimes like to start by saying and remembering for myself kind of out loud how I discovered or came across or happened to know or maybe even don't know the person. But with you, I had seen your name around and but I don't think that I had ever heard your voice until I stopped by a Monday Night Supper Club, which is a show that I like to plug regularly for Pat and Ben and Barbara at El Mercado South. And I happened to go, and you came up, and you guys sang "Until It Isn't."
Yeah.
And right. Which is a song that you wrote. Did you write it solely you, or did you collab with someone on that?
No, that was me.
Yeah, and Pat Byrne's doing a recording of. Did he release that already?
Yeah, it's been out. I think it came out in like June, so yeah. It's out. Yeah, he did a phenomenal job with it, actually. So
yeah,
it's a cool thing.
It was nice to hear you sing it though too.
Oh,
and it was nice to hear your voice, and your voice is unique in the tone. And it's just, it's one of those voices that I think probably a lot of singers are jealous of, because you have that wonderful natural rasp.
Mm.
And it feels like you can access it whenever you want, which probably pisses people off.
Yeah.
So I just remember just sort of being like jaw open when I heard your voice. It was like,
Mm.
whoa, okay, okay. So I had to go up and introduce myself afterwards. So that's how you and I met.
Yeah. That was a cool night. It's just like a testament to like, I need to go out more and do more things,
Yes,
because it's
please.
like every time I do something, I got a house concert from that night too, to play. And
Mhm.
I played up at the Coop, and that was
Mhm.
just cool. I need to get out more. So it's,
So where are you at with that? I mean, I feel like we could just jump right in right there. Where are you
yeah,
at with getting out more?
I'm doing better at it.
Yeah.
I go out more. I'm bad at like doing. I suck at doing anything I don't want to do. Right. So just, I mean, I know let's say that everybody is, but really everybody isn't, because most people hold jobs. I haven't had a job in 20 something years. You know what I mean? I do in going out or working. It's like, what am I just, my tractor beam of like what I want to go into changes all the time. So it's
Mhm.
like even hard to be just a musician. I'm always like tinkering with so many other things and throwing myself into these crazy learning curves. And I think it's the same thing with going out. Like sometimes I'm so into it. Like other times I don't want to hear music. I just don't. And
Mhm.
I know I'm supposed to, because like you go out and you see and you be seen, but I don't really enjoy that
Mhm.
part of it, the job. I went that night because I wanted to go.
Mhm.
That's all. But I'm getting better. I'm just more into music currently, and I have been. So it just means I've been going out more. I went and watched Ernie last night at the same place. I
Oh,
hadn't seen
cool.
him for a while. It's been a while, so
Do you feel like it's a bit ebb and flow with you, like that? And how do you feel about, like, what's your opinion on that? I too have a little bit of like that Da Vinci kind of syndrome, where I do have a lot
mm,
of interests. And sometimes I've looked at that as like a negative thing in my life, because I get distracted, or I feel like I judge myself and get really critical of like, well, you got to get really good at something, right? Like I think that's what society tells us to do. That, I mean, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generations, that was the sentiment there was like, you work your job and you stay at your job for your whole life, right? And
mm,
slowly as the generations pass, I think that lessens and lessens. But my ultimate point and ultimately question is like, what is your relationship with that being how your life is? Are you in a place of peace about that, or do you kind of feel conflicted?
um, um, I think I'm constantly conflicted.
Mm.
Because well, there's a lot of becauses in there. One is that like I'm 45 years old and I don't have an adult bank account. Not really, not to the point where I should own my own. Do you swear? And you
Yes,
don't. Okay, I don't
I love to
want to
swear.
mess with your AdSense, but I definitely communicate a little easier. But
Sure.
um, now I don't even need to swear. But I was just gonna say I don't like. I don't know. I just get tired. I fucking sorry. There you go. I lost my train of thought by asking that. I should have just
She's just,
gone. What was it? Sorry, what was that? I haven't even smoked
I
any pot
said,
either.
what is your relationship with that idea of that's kind of how your
Oh,
life is? And you said lots of becauses and conflict.
yeah. Well, it's frustrating because it's hard to get traction in any one place. Like there was a while I was so kind of almost sick of music, or feeling like I was focusing too much on the negative things and things I didn't like, that I was like fixing cars like full time for myself,
Mhm.
just buying and flipping cars, and I was like more into that.
Mhm.
And I've talked to people since, like, yeah, we're gonna have an intervention with you. No, but that's just what I was into. I was like,
Mhm.
I was just into it. I'm not like a gearhead in a way, but it was like I really enjoy figuring things out and fixing things. And that happened to be just really was just a distraction for me not being able to figure out how to do music in the way I want to. You
Mm.
know, everything was such a struggle for me. Like, but this was over the last 5 or 6 years, and I've slowly been getting to the point where I'm like, I understand more about why I want to make music. I really do love making music. It was never a decision, you
Mhm.
know. But I just got frustrated. Like, I didn't sign up for the social media, and it's like I'm not into that side of things. I know a lot of people aren't, but it's almost like to make it and really get traction, get following, you've got to be really good and just putting your face out there and selling yourself. And that is like kryptonite to me.
Yeah.
So it's like I've had to just, and I haven't, my new method and my new model of how to do things isn't proven because I just started a TikTok
Mm.
just to be, and I'm just not going to do it like other people. I'm just like every day I look around and I'm always doing something that I think is interesting, like
Mhm.
to me is interesting. So there's other people that's interesting too, whether it's like building a guitar or a shelf I built or some like little mechanism I made to make my little studio cooler, what the fuck ever it is, you know?
Mhm.
And I'm like, why? And I've always thought like, oh, okay, I should film these things. Um, but I hate stopping and doing it. But I'm just forcing myself. Like I've just come to the terms like, okay, that's just part of my fucking job. It's just
Mhm.
like going out. Sometimes I have to just do it when I just have to. I have to stop, even though I'm totally in the zone, and set up the stupid camera and film and then sit there and edit and fine, I'm gonna do that.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to like dip my toes into like some type of foundational practice for the music.
Yeah.
You know, that's just like that was the type of thing that was kind of holding me back from even wanting to bother. Cause I'm watching some of my friends just do so well, but they're constantly on social media. But they're good at it. They like doing it. You can tell. I'm sure there's times they don't want to, but they like doing it. And they
Mhm.
don't something in me that's just like I don't like asking for things. I don't like telling people how great I think they might think I am. I don't
Selling yourself essentially.
hate it. Hate it.
Yeah.
Hate
Yeah.
booking, all of that stuff. Anything that's
Yeah.
happened to me in the last 10 years is mainly from just falling in my lap from who I know. And
Mm.
that's not a good way to live. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because it's like
Sure.
feast or famine. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's just like, what the fuck am I doing?
Mhm.
And then that's, like I said in the email, I do have all kinds of other little income sources. So it's not like, um, and there's no poverty going on. I have everything I need. I have a great situation, but I also like, it's like I always felt like once music got together, I'd be able to, well, then I'll get up there and I'll get the house and I'll finally, that will just happen. But I'm realizing now, like, nah, I have to like sit and plan this shit out and have kind of a data driven weekly thing that I do, whether
Mhm.
it's songwriting so many hours a week, recording so many hours to making sure I make this much money every week. And
Yeah.
this is all kind of new for me. Like just kind of slapping this kind of thing into my life. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty long answer, I think, but
No, I think it's valuable. I don't think that you're alone in going through that. And I will tell you firsthand from what I hear having conversations with people on this show and off camera, the social media is the number one freaking enemy of
yeah,
all of it. And you are in good company because I have to
yeah,
do it too. And it's a total pain in the ass. It's like another full-time job. And I don't like doing that either. But like you have to keep up momentum and you have to keep up the visual because people really, the eyeballs
yep,
is so important. And just people, you know, like I could put up something really deep and meaningful, just words, or I could put up a photograph from a photo shoot, and guess what, people are gonna click, you know what I
yep,
mean? So it's like there is this unveiling of what we all know about humanity. We all know what we're made of. We all know what the brass tacks of all of this is. Every single one of us is the same. And we know in the quiet of our own rooms what we're made of and what we like and what we're curious about and what kind of like makes us look. And having to play that game, I would imagine, I know for myself, doing what I do takes away from the art and the magic and the reason why you do what you do in writing and singing such wonderful songs. And so I think it's about finding balance. It's about finding, okay, how can I start? What's the minimum I can do? And also be authentic in doing it, because that's really, really important. And maybe even enjoy it. And maybe even stitching that in connection with, this is because we are all wired for connection. So if your intention is to just get eyeballs and get likes and be in the algorithm, you're probably not going to do well, and you're probably going to have a shitty time doing it. But if your intention is about connection, which I feel like for you, that's probably what it would be. I think you could get off on connection big time, because you're a real, like you are good people, you know. I can tell that, like, your heart is, this is important to you. Then make it about connection. Make it about authentic connection. And supplement that with getting your ass out on a stage and letting us hear you play.
Yeah.
Because we enjoy, I mean, honestly, when I first heard you open your mouth, it was like, I'm shy. I don't love going up to people and handing out my business card. I actually kind of dread it. But I was like, I don't care. I gotta give my card to that guy.
Oh, I'm so glad you did.
So
yeah.
I think that there's a little bit of like a combo plate. I don't think you have to go only one thing. There's multi dimensions to this thing. And I'm getting on a pulpit a little bit only because I want you to feel encouraged, and I want you to feel comfortable, because I know how this is. It's not super fun, but it leads to connection, and it leads to the ultimate thing that we all want, right?
Yeah. No, totally. It's
Yeah.
that has, I mean, that's the paradox. Like when, you ask like what's like, how do I feel about kind of my lack of wanting to go out? It's like, you also realize, like, I mean, that's something I think I'm just starting to learn it. I know it, but you know how like something doesn't always resonate for a while.
Yes.
But I'm starting, the no man is an island thing, or whatever. It's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I have typically over the last decade, anyways, done everything by myself. Like I've learned everything by myself, like from fixing my guitars to like studio recording, all of that. Like I'm graphic design, art. I do all that, and it's a heavy burden after a while, because sometimes I don't want to do art. I'm not psyched to make art for my thing. And wouldn't it be cool just like if I kind of had a thing going, and it's like, had that one person. But then again, I also, my other big problem is I hate spending money on when I can do it, or I can do it for free or cheap. And that is, I don't know. It's like I lived through the Great Depression or something like that. So I'm actually really good with money. And it's like, if I could start seriously making some, I could probably get a house pretty damn quick, because that's good. But yeah, no, my point is, it's I would love to have, like, I have good friends, but it's, and they're all musicians, but you can't lean on them for gigs, or even too much for like, hey, can you just put some ears on this thing? You gotta, what little help I get from them, because I don't ask very often, is, it's invaluable. It's great, but it would be nice to have more of I've wanted a wider circle around me. But I also, like, I'm picky. There's certain people, like, I'm a very on off person, I guess you'd say. And so I either really like somebody, or I'm kind of like, and it's just like, I think one of the biggest problems I have is that everything I'm doing is insanely interesting to me. So it's like, I could not leave the house. Like the pandemic, was fucking awesome. I loved it. Because it was just like, me too. Because it was just like, wow, I can just keep doing projects, and there's nothing dragging me from the house. and I never got tired of it.
Mhm.
But that helped me to realize, like, all right, like there's a huge place where other people should be in my life. And I've been trying to be better about kind of connecting with people and getting out more. And I have been, actually. I've been a lot better than I typically have used to be. But anyway, I'm trying to get better at that, because I do realize it's not just in utility, but so there's this philosophy you ever heard like Danny Kahneman, or that book Thinking Fast and Slow?
No, but I'm gonna write
Well,
it down.
it's a great book. It's a little bit dense, but it was worth it. But it's also come up in a lot of podcasts and other things I've read. And there's two selves in that we have. There's the experiential self, and
Mhm.
then there's the like the now self, right?
Mhm.
And I'm probably getting this wrong. I can't, there's another name for it. It's not the now self, but it was like during the day, like you're thinking, oh, this is important. I gotta finish this. I gotta send these bills out. Oh, I gotta return these texts. Like, and you can do this ad infinitum for the rest of your fucking life, right? Just every day you could fill with this stuff. But what do we remember on our deathbed?
Right.
It's none of that. It's
Right.
none of that stuff. Like when I think back on good times, it's always with other people. It's not like this thing I finally finished building. Like once I'm done, I'm like, oh, that fits perfect in my workflow. Great. Well, moving on. I'm just on to the next thing, but
Right.
there is having people in your life that matter. It's pretty important. So it is something I think about a lot, more
Yeah.
so than I ever used to. I used to be like, fuck it. People are annoying me, and I can just get it done. I don't have to worry about nothing.
Yeah.
Kind of how it always was. But
There's
anyway.
something beautiful that can happen by needing someone and letting someone help you, and
Mm,
being vulnerable and releasing some of that independence. I'm a little bit like you in that way, where I'm probably a little too independent, and a work in progress. I'm your age. And so I think I was going to ask you, do you find that just time and getting older is helping with that? I mean, just as we age and are at this age, I know for me in my life, people have died, and
mm,
just like the concept of death, and like, oh, like, and I have two children, and so it's just like, wow, they're getting older, and like just life starts to get a little bit more real. um do you feel like that just in and of itself innately helps you start to blend in these things that you need to blend in?
hmm. Um, I don't know if it's the pressure of years coming down. I think if anything, it's the time that I've had to work on things. I think like anybody that knows me, like knows like I'm constant, like if I'm not learning something or working on something, I just get kind of bored. And that's another thing, I'm trying to be better at relaxing and that kind of thing. But like in the sense of yeah, I don't know. I think I was just gonna say, like, it's the years, like I've been able to put a lot of self work in, like on top of always working on physical things around like my house or whatever. Like I'm always trying to figure myself out, like, because it's not perfect, you know what I mean? Like I've always had like this, I didn't even know that it was anxiety until like probably 6 or 7 years ago. Then it's like, oh, no wonder people talk about it like it's something that sucks, and that's been something I've been working on, trying, and it's actually like at an all-time low right now. So it's another reason I don't mind going out so much. It really has just like precipitously just dropped almost out of my life over the last couple of years. Not totally, but anyway, there's tons of factors and ways
Can we
that
talk
I've,
can we talk a little bit about, because a
yeah,
lot of people have anxiety, and
yeah, I'd be happy to.
talk a little bit about what you do, your routine, and these things that have become disciplines for you that that have helped.
Well, there's a bunch of things. So really, the first thing was figuring out my diet. Like I'm allergic to dairy, so that's been out for like most of my adult life. Right? I figured that out in college, but it had to have been another 10 years when, I know it's a big fad, gluten free, all this stuff. So it was like, okay, well maybe gluten, and I'd cut that out, cut bread out, and I was like, I felt like way better. And then so I went years of that, but still, I'd feel like shit every now and then, and it's like, okay, am I drinking too much? You quit drinking, um, and you still kind of feel like shit, and it's all this back and forth of like, why do I feel like shit? Really shouldn't. Um, and I think the start of really understanding it came when I read a couple books on mindfulness, and meditation,
Mhm.
and I had a good start on it because as a kid, I figured out a way to fall asleep. Like I actually could bifurcate my what was going on in my mind. I realized there were two different minds, that there was one looking and then there was just one chattering. And I used to, as a kid, it would be always so loud that I couldn't sleep. It was just like you were just listening, like you were in an auditorium filled with shit. And I used to have this thing where I'd sit in the back. You ever see Mystery Theater 3000?
Mhm.
Okay, so by the way, I talked to a psychologist about this, and he thought it was a great trick, and it's actually a thing that prominent psychologists have. There's a name for it, but I figured it out as a kid. But anyway, so what I do is I'd sit there in my mind, of course, um, and I just pretend it was like a movie theater. And what I do is I'd make everything quiet, like I'd be like, shut up. And if anything started talking, it was all these little heads kind of in front of the screen. And
Mhm.
as I sat there, it's totally a meditation because I was sitting there quieting those voices, and I was again imagining them as people, and the screen would almost be just kind of like dull and just, but you know how when you close your eyes it's still a shimmering light, it's not
Mhm.
pure blackness. And I remember just kind of looking at that, and as I could like stick with it as I'm trying to fall asleep, I knew I was falling more and more into sleep as the screen would start to light up more. And
Mm.
then it was like then you'd like, as you're starting to fall asleep, before you do, you'd see like really crazy things going on. And it was almost like the movie came on, and
Mm.
then you just kind of watch the movie, and then you're out. I mean, by the time you get to that point, you can't sit there
Yeah.
and watch it for a while. But anyway, that was huge for understanding that, and then studying on a kind of a brainy level as well what meditation is. But really understanding that like you don't have to identify with your feelings and thoughts. Like just because I'm angry, like when like it's amazing to go like no matter how angry I am, I can sit back and go, okay, have I done everything I can do? Yes. So why am I still reverberating in the same circle? You can just stop, and you're still going to feel it physically, and you're just like, and
Mhm.
then you just kind of like, I'm not great at it. There's still residual
Mhm.
tightness that I have, but it's still like you can just I don't know. It's like a blank page for a second and start again, and that's a
Love
superpower,
that. I
you
love that.
know.
Yeah. Meditation is huge in my life. I have done it. I start every morning in meditation.
Uh,
I've done it so much now that it's finally a habit, and it's something I look forward to every morning. Um, and I will say, ever since forming that habit, I find myself throughout the day being able to slip into a state of what you just talked about. And the visual that I have for myself is when I have a big feeling, and I get something just happened the other day where I got my feelings were very hurt, and I was
mm,
simultaneously very hurt and angry.
mm,
And I haven't really felt that it feels like it's been a minute since I've really felt that kind of bolus of a shot, like felt very blindsiding, right? So I wasn't
mm-hmm,
prepared, but the visual that I was prepared to do, what I was prepared for is how to handle it. And so for me, I opened the front door and I opened the back door of my mind.
mm,
And that's it. All my job is to open the front door and the back door. And I give myself grace to be hurt and to be angry and to feel it as needed and then let it go.
yeah.
And there's so much power in feeling like I am ready to let this go. I get to let it go. The power shifts in me, where it felt like it had the power because it landed on me, and then I take the power by opening the doors and going, I get to choose when you go, right?
Mm.
There's something really powerful in just, I'm so happy that mindfulness and meditation and all of that is really coming socially up to the surface for children, for multiple kind of generations at this moment.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
scientifically too.
oh yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Mm.
so that's something that you do. So diet, meditation. What else are you doing just to kind of
Um,
stay in top
like,
form?
you know what? There was like this one little pivot point. Like I'd been kind of, and I honestly don't meditate as much as I should. I probably only do a couple times a week. But what I've found is like the most useful thing, the biggest, I think, utility of it is that you can just, no matter what, like I try when I'm listening, just like I'm listening to you. I'm my brain wants to think of other things and come up with something to say. Like you might say something like, then here it goes. I'm stringing these thoughts together about what I'm going to say. Like you just chalk that. Like I try my best to be present because it's just not natural to me. Like if you met my family, they're all like pretty well, like especially my dad's side of family, it's just like ADD mania.
Mm,
Like diet diets on paint chips and shit for all I know. But
mm.
it's so it's never that's never been really part of my life. But anyway, that like I think people think of meditation like, oh, I don't want to sit and do that. But it's like once you can get the concept, like you can use it all the time. You
All
can
day.
just be a better person. You just, like I think naturally somebody will start talking, and in my head, I'm just like, yeah, 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 yeah. I already know what you're gonna say. But if you actually listen to what they say, there's always something you're like, oh, okay, I didn't think they would say that. So that's why there's incentive to do it too. Like just stop your fucking head and just try. I mean, that's where it's been the most important, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm like inhaling everything you're saying because it is
Mm,
the absolute same for me, where
mm,
it's such a gift not only to the other person that you're talking to and that's talking to you, but it's also a gift, I think, for us too, to feel and build the power of the mind. For me, it just makes my mind feel more powerful. It makes me feel more powerful in a good, healthy way. Like I'm using my
yeah.
powers for good, you know? I'm choosing, instead of reaction, it's response. And
Yes.
is a big difference there. Huge difference.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. Because for me in my own life, having two teenagers, they require a lot of response versus reaction because it gets a little spicy around here,
Yeah.
So they need a
Imagine.
leader. They need someone that's has power over their mind in me as their mom, right? So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
It's such a
Yeah.
wonderful practice, but I do think too, it's intimidating for people because there is sort of this visual of what meditation is, but I think people, I don't think it's correct. I think you're right. I think it's so much more than that. And how do we,
Yeah.
hopefully anyone listening to this, it kind of chips away at that mold because it's not, it's just so powerful and it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Thank you for sharing that.
yeah. I mean, that's been yeah, that was I think that was a huge part. And to me that's really the biggest ongoing thing. I feel like it's like I'm still just I can't do any of the other stuff I hear about, like the non-dualistic and like they can completely detach, almost like psychedelics can do that quickly, but they can actually detach the ego in a sense and like just tamp it down so far that you can actually feel like a real peacefulness and I don't know, and kind of a stripping away of the objectivity of the world and the way we see things. And I find that stuff so interesting, and I get super cerebral about it, but it's also I totally believe that some people can do that. Like those monks that sit in caves for like 24 years or whatever. And I have no doubt that the expansiveness and the control of their mind is like probably the best blissful feeling you could possibly ever feel.
Yeah.
No doubt. Better than heroin or whatever feels amazing, you know?
Yeah.
But
Also too, when you're a monk, you know, you don't have a lot of the things that you and I have going on in our lives. So I think there is something, a little nugget to take from that too, of like, you know,
totally.
take an I like taking inventory, you know, especially when things get hard or stressful. I always go to the word inventory. It's like always the first word in my brain. And I take inventory. Okay, what is going really well? What do I have? Is there anything I need? Can I survive? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what's wrong? Like, what is not working right now? What is the actual problem? You know, and I just do inventory. And the goal is just to, like, you know, really peel back. Okay, what's the ultimate issue? You know, but if
Yeah.
I'm a monk that gets to sit in a cave all day, you know,
Well,
inventory
that's
low.
isn't that the funny thing though? Like it's we spend our whole lives acquiring and getting to these goals and desiring, and it's like, and that's the hard sell for me, and I think a lot of people is that like in the end, the cause of our suffering is all the goal seeking and things we want and desires and letting our minds constrict around desires or something you want when really if you can like that's what they're doing is they're throwing all that off. They're not like I mean
Right.
I don't know, but that's how do you live in this world and have that? So
I
I still
think,
like doing things, and you know what? I do. I look forward to things, and I'm not in the present moment. But that's the fucking human condition. I mean, it's just gonna happen, you know.
yeah,
So
I think that there's a sweet spot for, you know, like a medium point. We're not going to live in a cave, but we are going to live in this life that you and I live in. I do think that there's a sweet spot of, and I don't think it's easy, but I do think that the spot exists where we can tie our rope to authenticity, boundaries. For me, it's hell yes or it's hell no. Like those are the only two options. And I'm not going to do it if it's not a hell yes, period. Period.
I
Uh,
like that. Mm.
yes. And that's what I teach my kids, you know, like you need to really feel how you feel. And if you are on the fence, if it's not like something that you can be excited about and be and absolutely be present and give your all and be happy doing it, then it's enough.
Mm.
But my point is that I
See,
think
you if I follow that, I'm not gonna be going out at all.
then maybe you don't go out if that's what
Nah.
makes you happy. Then you need to reevaluate what you want this to look like, you
No,
know?
I know it's. I was kind of making a joke, but in the end, like I'm always glad I did go out. For instance, tonight I met you and played. It was cool, but I promise you, I was probably like dragging my heels, like, oh fuck, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
You know, just like,
Yeah.
but
I always say
it's more complicated. But
that there's something cool in kind of like having this little thing in the back of your head, and this is what I have for me is like something wonderful is always about to happen. And I know that's
mm,
probably pretty Pollyanna and rose colored and all that. And there's a lot of shit in this world, but there's also like a lot of gold. And
mm,
that usually lies between two people, if not more, you know, in some sort of setting. And I think sometimes it's just about going, okay, maybe if it's not a hell yes, do I still believe that something wonderful could happen?
there you go. That makes sense. I
Yeah.
get that. I mean, I can roll with
Can you roll with that?
that.
Next time you have the opportunity to go out and you're dragging your heels, just call me and I will remind you. something wonderful could happen. So go.
All right.
Plus, want people to hear your songs. Okay. That is our philosophy and meditation lesson for everyone. Let's talk about your music. Talk about piano and how is it going playing piano, and are you at a place where, because I know you're mostly guitar, right? For your life. Were you a little bit of piano? What's your relationship with piano?
I've always, I didn't realize it till later, but I've always wanted to play piano. Like the way I approached the guitar was like like a piano. Like I was fascinated with like, well, keep the bass notes going and like try to figure out how to make your fingers also play some melody. So there's a bunch of songs that like I just started learning tunes like that. I think when I found this kid online doing like Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, and the guy's just like dun, 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 you know, playing it, and then next thing you know, he's like chopping the chords, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like that. I knew was like that's the direction I want to go in.
Yeah.
But it, you know, and I still find it. I still figure out songs all the time. I mean, I was playing Strawberry Fields Forever. I've got that pretty well down in a Chet Atkins style, you know.
Nice.
But it's limited. You know, the guitar is limited. I think when I moved here and I started playing with like people like David Hamburger, who's like a world-renowned guitar player.
Insane. Yeah.
Insane. And but also like like I'm friends with him now, but I didn't know who he was, but I used to go watch Dave Scher, and I've never seen anybody handle a guitar like him.
Yeah.
And then my other, I mean, there's like these three Davids, and they're just fucking badass. And David Jimenez puts
Oh,
more feel into the guitar than I mean I've seen really anybody come close to doing. You know, it's just this feel, it moves you. And so it's like when I moved here, I was just like, man, I'm gonna have to dedicate 99% of my life to getting like 2% closer to what these guys are doing. So I kind of get to the point with guitar where I'm like, I'm gonna just rest on my laurels. I mean, I'd practice, but I just wasn't so gung ho about it. And I think I had this keyboard sitting around. This is like 4 or 5 years ago, and I had it around, but I don't know. Just one night, I remember I was going to watch my friends Nick and Paige from the Reverend Few, and I had a bunch of recordings of them, and I don't know. I just had my computer there, and I had like full shows because I had played with them a little bit, so I had to learn all these songs, and I just sat down on the keyboard and just started being like, I'd rather be doing this, you know. And this has to be 5 years ago now, and I just practiced like crazy for years. And it's just getting to the point now where I'm like I've played it out and I've brought it with me for band gigs and stuff, but it's just getting to the point now where I can really carry on my own. For me, the only thing is like if I'm just by myself and I don't have a band to lean on, it's like, well, what do you do in between verses? You know, you need to solo, and that's where I'm kind of like I'm working on finding the vocabulary for that.
yeah.
So I think piano is going to be a huge part of my life. I think moving forward, I've got the guitar. I'm not going to forget how to play it, and I've been having a lot of fun playing lately too. It's just I'm in and out with it, but the piano is just fascinating because it's like it's like five. It's like four people. You got bass and chords on just one hand. Like to me, that's
Right.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's two people. That's a rhythm section, you know. And on this hand, like, you know, you can play some melody and then chop some chords around it. It's just I wish I'd played piano my whole life. I really do.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just gonna be kind of putting myself out there
Yeah.
soonish. I'm still a little tepid about it. But you know,
Well, you have the right spirit about it. I mean, you're lighting up talking about it, so you're
I love
definitely
it. Yeah.
moving into hell yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it is. It has been, but it's a big learning curve. You know, all
Yeah.
I have to do is just go watch somebody that's been playing for years, and it's like, oh, there's a trillion things I don't know how to do. You know,
Yeah.
but it's never going to end with that instrument. I mean, I will never, even if I get to the point where I could actually play like Ray Charles, which I never will, and I say that with all positivity. There's still so much more to learn.
Yeah.
There's stuff he
And
couldn't do.
yeah. And you'll enjoy learning it.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, so you're originally from Maine and you've been in Austin about 10 years. Same here. I moved here in 2013.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
where?
LA. Don't
I've never
hate,
been there.
don't
I
hate
don't.
me.
I don't know much about it. I get no opinions on the place. It sounds like a little whack at the moment, but
Yeah.
it's fucking weather kills. I would love the weather.
I will tell you, my house, no AC, windows open, no bugs,
Yeah,
you know, 2 miles from the beach. It's pretty nice.
I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, that's mostly what I miss is like my friends and the weather. And that's about it, you know.
Why did you move here?
Just to kind of downshift and raise my kids outside of Hollywood. And, I worked in TV and um I just didn't want to raise them in that. And
Mm,
I came here married and my ex-husband was from here. And so I was like, I'd live in Austin, I guess. I don't really love
mm,
Texas in general,
mm-hmm.
but Austin seems cool. The water, having water was really, I've always lived near water, always my whole life. So that was really important to me. And it just felt like the kids could have more space,
Yeah,
metaphorically and literally.
yeah.
So yeah, you know, it's good. We've made a nice life here and the kids love it. And they say y'all, which is hysterical to me because I refuse to say that word.
What is it on the West Coast? Like, because the East Coast is like guys. Hey, guys.
Hey guys, yeah. I was born on the East Coast. So I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
which, is the Keystone State. So it's kind of still
Yeah.
to the east. And then I finished growing up in California. In California, it would just be like um I don't think there is anything. I think it's just like, hey, some sort of I'm trying to think of like some surf lingo, like but that's not,
Mm,
it's more about like stoked and stupid
yeah.
stuff like that. Um yeah. So what made you come to Austin?
Um, I was just, I don't, it was such a weird decision. I just decided, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I just wanted something different, I guess. I don't know. I kind
Had
of
you
run the,
ever been here before?
no, no. And I came down, I was dating this girl. We traded cars for the time being. So I had this little VW bus and, I have a friend that I went to high school with here, but we weren't like super close, it wasn't like he wasn't an anchor point or anything like that. We've seen each other since here and there, but um yeah, no, I just came down and like, man, I just said, okay, 6th Street, I guess. Here I gotta go there. And then I just parked there and just started talking to people and find out where the open mics were. And
Mm.
you want to hear a funny story? Like right the fuck away. Do you remember the Parish? I don't even know if I don't think that's there anymore, or at least the Parish Underground isn't. But there
Yeah.
was a place called the Parish Underground, and I remember I first got out of the bus and went over and get, I don't know, whatever, burrito somewhere. And then like the next down, I went to the Parish Underground, was just having some drinks and just rapping with the bartender, and I just like, hey, here's a CD. I don't know. I was like so motivated. I was like giving my CD out and stuff. And anyway, so I give this guy a CD, and he's like, yeah, we'll just give it to the guys booking because they sometimes did smaller things in the parish in the underground part of it, or the smaller club part. And like I got a call like within the next day or two. They're like, yeah, somebody fell out of the lineup and we need a opener. And I'm like, okay. But this was in the big room. I played like 2 days in. I played at the parish. It was fucking insane. And like after the show, and I just went up with my acoustic and did my thing. And after the show, some girl comes up and she's like, how the fuck did you get on this stage? Because I had said, like, I just moved here like 2 days. She goes, I have friends that have been trying to get on here for like a decade, and you just walked in. I was like, look, I just gave them my CD. He said he liked it and called it. And so I had like kind of a quick thing like that, like little bits of luck.
Mhm.
But that's what's made me reevaluate. It could go into a longer story, but it's how I've reevaluated how I'm going to go about things. I follow like a lot of stand-up comedy. I love that stuff.
Oh,
And
who's your favorite?
there,
Who's your favorite?
I mean, I still think Louis C.K. is the GOAT. I don't care what he did. It's over. Sorry, everybody,
And
but
Bill Burr.
he's fucking funny. Oh yeah, I was listening to Bill Burr today.
I love
Um,
him.
he's an absolute genius. Listening to him talk is like listening to him is like listening to really smart versions of my family. Like just because that's because he's from that same area. Like, yeah, I was in Maine, but I lived in the Fall River area of Massachusetts until I was like 8.
Uh-huh.
So like most of my family, they all have that Boston accent, you know, like that kind of thing. So like listening to him is just like listening to my family talking. No, but anyway, I had listened to this interview with Joey Diaz and hearing about how they still go to open mics even when they're like made. And I was like, oh wait, that's fucking makes total sense. But like after a few years here, I kind of got in with a really good group of people like Jeff Plankenhorn, and a
Mhm.
lot of people I'm sure you know all about. And something I just felt like I was too good for that stuff, which was kind of silly because I made so many great contacts. Like open mics are incredibly annoying. They just are. There's usually like 1 or 2 people that's worth anything. But like where I've started to realize like where I've been wrong and not like at least going and messing around with new songs and trying them out. Is like this town is a conveyor belt of new people, and where like some sick people come through here all the time. I
Mhm.
mean, I met Nick and Paige from the Reverend Few at an open mic. They had just moved here, and we all like they played a Wood Brothers song. I'm like shit, and I played like a Beatles finger picking thing, Martha My Dear
Mhm.
piano song. I did it on the guitar, and they were like, "What the fuck?" And so we just all became friends
Yeah.
from there, you know, and that could have just been happening for these last 10 years, but for some reason I was just, you know, I was too good for it. I had my regular places I was playing. Even the fact that that all got kind of stale for me and I was kind of not enjoying it anymore, I still wasn't reaching out to do more. I was kind of like thinking shit would just happen.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of where my philosophy around how what the fuck am I doing here
Mhm.
has I've been reshaping it with more
Yeah.
of a like just being open, like so what? Okay, like it was getting to the point where I wouldn't take, like, I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to play for 150 bucks, 3 hour hit. But now it's the point where, like, that was such a waste because I'm gonna say it was such a waste, but I would turn down a lot of stuff I didn't want to do because it was, you know, 6 hours of my day, and I'd be lucky, you know, it'd be $75, and I used to get pissed about that stuff. But now it's like, well, just getting in front of people is typically something always happens. Whether it's somebody gives you their number to do a show or somebody at least buys a bunch of merch. You know, usually if it's a $75 show, you're usually doubling your money easy enough with tips and stuff around here. But
Mhm.
anyway, so I can't remember where the main point I spun off from, but
So it sounds like you're recalibrating.
big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're getting comfortable with that and it hopefully is feeling good, or hopefully it's a fairly comfortable process.
Yeah. And it's something it's like I've been doing enough thinking and planning and like really trying to poke holes in kind of this new way of moving forward, but I'm pretty good with it. Like it's like I've jumped into things very impulsively in the past. Like, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fucking do this, and like, and
Mhm.
then it's just like, well, then I don't feel like doing that in 3 weeks, you
Mhm.
know. But this has been kind of building from the ground for a good year or two of like, how am I gonna how if I'm gonna go forward, how am I doing this? Like, because
Mhm.
I can't be miserable. I'm not gonna like if I'm gonna be fucking miserable, I'm just gonna go get a job and make a ton of money. Why not? You know, and just go work for somebody and not have my days to myself anymore. Fine, if
Mhm.
that's what I want to do. But I knew I needed. I like having the days to myself to do whatever I want to do, and I decided like music has to be that way forward. It just does. It's what I do all the time. Even when I'm not liking music, I'll still be playing piano or
Yeah.
something. so.
It's just how your brain and your heart are wired together.
Yeah, it's a lot of maintenance, but
Well, the outcome is so beautiful. And um, let's kind of wrap it up with talking about what you're working on now. And I know you have a treasure trove of songs that are sitting in
yeah,
any one of many kind of
hard drives.
hard drives and states of being produced and finished. But what's the end goal? Or are you gonna put out, basically I'm asking if you're gonna put out some new music soon?
No, I am. And I did see I had started getting back into part of part of where I was blocked up was like, how am I putting out music? Like it was such a headache. Like I put out an album and it was kind of during the pandemic, but even just to build up to putting an album out, like I don't like that. I don't like having to book the show. I don't like having to find the band. I don't like having to promote, as we've talked about. So and I've been paying attention to how like the new model is kind of like that doesn't matter anyways. Nobody gives a shit. So I was like, I'm just gonna do singles, and I ended up, I think last March or April, I did a record of cover songs. There's two of them called Weightless Embrace, and they're rearranged cover albums. But I had done this track with this rapper from Maine, and I wanted that. So I did a re-release of one of them, and I put that out. And then 5 weeks later, I put out, I can't even think what it is. I put out 2 or 3 singles in a row. Yeah, I think I did like 2 or 3, and I was on a good roll. And I told my email list and everybody, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this every 5 weeks. I can do it, and I could have, but then I went to Maine and ended up staying for like a month and a half, and I couldn't do any mixing. I couldn't really work, and I was enjoying myself so much. I was like, it was nice. I just relaxed for like a month and a half, and I said, fuck it. So then I came back, and it's been, a month of life, just getting back to the grind. So now I'm back at it and I'm mixing. I'm kind of stuck on one. I'm getting irritated with it, but so it means I need to open up another one. But and I've got a song I think I told you about I wrote with Pat Byrne and Ben Balmer, and that should be out in November. That's our plan. I got to go finish mixing it. I think it's done, but aside from that, yeah, it's just like I just want to be putting music out regularly, and I don't care about the albums anymore because nobody else does. So I don't have to print CDs because no one's buying them anyway. And maybe I'll package them if I ever play some bigger shows and just do short runs or something if people really want to buy them. But I really honestly like this kind of method of just, because doing an album, it's like you got to get all the songs ready. Like I want to say I've got about 12 to 15 that are in various states of mixing. Doesn't mean I'm not severely stuck on some of them or not quite digging them, but I like right now in my mind, I think I'd never put anything out again if I had to put out 10 all at once.
Right.
Like now it's like, boom, I can just single them out. And then I can just shuffle them around in the interface, and then I can package them online as an album someday under Spotify, have them all there. Fine, whatever. But that's kind of like how that has been an important way through or around a lot of what I felt like we're supposed to do, So
I like that. I like that it's, I mean, the music industry and all of it's changed so much, obviously, since you and I were kids, and lots of opinions on that. But I am digging everything that you just said for you guys that are doing it. I think that it must feel so much better to just present one baby instead of like trying to herd cats. And it just feels like you can be way more present, be way more intentional, spend more time, and just be so much more intentional with what you're putting out. Because at the end of the day, it's not just some commodity. This is a piece of you. that you're sharing, putting a song out like behind all of the surface is about you sharing
Yeah.
who you are. And I think time should be taken with that. And it should happen when you want it to happen, not with
Yeah.
a batch of other things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of an upside to like what is really a downside. I mean, that you can't really sell physical music anymore. That was kind of huge for us
Yeah.
peddling CDs and whatnot. I mean, yeah, you can sell vinyl, but I don't have a big enough market share
Yeah.
to do that anymore. I did it once, and I still have like 2 huge boxes of them. And it's incredible.
Yeah. I'll take
So,
one. I have a
all right.
turntable. I'd love to
Yeah,
see
no, I'd
it.
love that.
I'm trying to build my collection. Yeah, it's
So,
funny.
yeah.
My friend Dan Navarro just put a CD or put an album out, and I got to see him. Do you know Dan?
It sounds very familiar,
He wrote.
honestly.
He's part of Lowen and Navarro. Lowen unfortunately passed away, but they wrote "We Belong" that Pat Benatar made really
Oh,
famous.
wow.
Anyway, Dan put an album out and he was in town and I got to see him and he handed me a CD and just today my daughter was in the back seat and she goes, "Why is the CD still in the car?" I'm like, "Because I have nowhere to put it." Like I have nothing to put it into. There's
Oh,
no
no.
do you know what he knew that and he was like, "I don't know if you even have it." I'm like, "Just give it to me." But I mean, yeah, like there's no, vinyl I think is really more what people actually have, ironically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's kind of too bad. I actually put, and I would recommend it, is just put a CD player in your car. It's so worth it because it sounds so much better. People don't realize like
Yeah.
like shitty files are
Yeah.
that Spotify plays. I mean, it's like a bit rate of like 360, whereas a CD is 44,000 samples. I mean,
Oh, wow.
yeah, like the difference between the two is it's huge. And then put, take vinyl on top of that, and it's infinite how much better it sounds. A lot of people argue about
So
it, but I hear the
shitty. Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
like with old stuff. I mean, it's so obvious. It's so dimensional, and there's no dimension to what you have to hear through streaming sites.
Hmm.
But anyway, I could go off on that. But what are you gonna do? you know?
Yeah. Well, goodness gracious. I feel like I could talk to you, especially about philosophy and all that deep stuff. I feel like we could go on for another hour. So we'll have to have you back on. I'd love to.
Yeah, I'm like part 3, 4, 5, sure.
Yeah, we could do like, trying to think of some alliteration with Eric.
Well, you number your podcast so we could have like kind of a jumping around, like
Yeah,
what number am I?
you're
Like
going to be 31, which
31,
is one of my favorite numbers, by the way. I'm weird.
31.
Yeah. So we could do like 31, 61, 91.
I was gonna say like just do a 31.2,
Oh, yeah.
24.
A little point.
Yeah,
Your graphic will be different. It's more special than everyone else's.
I'm fine with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. And when you are playing next, please let me know because I want to shout it from my rooftop over here and make sure people know because you are so good, so
Oh, thank you.
talented. Yeah, I really mean it. I'm a big fan and I'm happy to get to have met you in person and give you a hug and get to know you a little bit more. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I thank you. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Anytime, really.
Good. Well, 31.2 coming soon to a theater near you. You even got a snort. Not everybody gets a snort.
This
All
is
right, guys.
raising the bar. Austin Downbeat, huh?
It's big pressure for my next guest next week. All right, guys, that does it for another episode of the Austin Downbeat. I am your host, Kat. Thank you to my guest, Eric, today for coming on, and we'll see you next time. Bye.